There's a quietness that some people carry with them, a deliberate stillness that feels more comforting than the buzz of conversation. It isn't that they dislike others or that they're incapable of connecting. It's that their inner world holds a depth that often makes words feel unnecessary or even distracting. For these individuals, silence is not emptiness, it is space. Space to think, to observe, to process what is happening around them without the pressure to respond immediately. While others might find a room quiet when there's no chatter, they feel an absence only when that silence is broken, when someone forces words into the air before they are ready to be shaped or understood. Silence, for them, is a kind of mental breathing. It is a way to stay grounded, to avoid being pulled into distractions that feel arbitrary or shallow. Conversation, by contrast, is an energy exchange, and not every exchange feels like it replenishes. There's a subtle calculation that happens beneath the surface. How much energy will this interaction take? What will it demand in terms of attention, emotional labor, or vulnerability? For those who prefer silence, the answer often comes back as too much, not in a way that judges the other person, but in a recognition of their own limits and rhythms. They're not withdrawing from life, they're curating it. When we think about it, conversation itself is a complex act. It demands that we align our thoughts, emotions, and timing with someone else's, often without clear instructions or guarantees of understanding. There is a rhythm to social interaction, and those who favor silence tend to have a different internal tempo. They notice subtleties that others might miss, the shift in tone, the slight hesitation before a word is chosen, the unspoken implication behind a joke. These are cues that are lost in the rapid back and forth of casual dialogue. By remaining quiet, they give themselves the chance to fully register the layers of meaning that might otherwise slip past unnoticed. It is not avoidance, it is attention. And it is exhausting to sustain in environments where noise, both literal and metaphorical, is constant. There is also a psychological safety in silence. Words carry responsibility. They can be misinterpreted, judged, or rejected. Speaking requires exposure, and exposure always involves risk. For some, the mental calculus of this risk outweighs the potential reward of interaction. In solitude or in quiet presence, they can observe, reflect, and consider without the constant threat of misalignment or misunderstanding. Silence allows them to think without having to perform thinking out loud, to explore ideas in a private space before presenting them to the world. And in this process, they often cultivate a clarity and precision of thought that is harder to achieve when every idea is filtered through social expectation. Emotionally, silence can serve as a buffer. Many people underestimate the fatigue of emotional attunement, the strain of decoding others' moods and responding appropriately. Each conversation is a negotiation of energy, and for those who prefer silence, the negotiation can feel disproportionately costly. They are sensitive to the rhythms of social energy, not in a superficial way, but as a real, measurable load on their capacity to engage. When the world feels loud, when expectations of participation are constant, retreating into silence is not an escape, it is self-preservation. It allows them to maintain emotional equilibrium, to protect their mental bandwidth for the moments that truly matter. It's important to recognize that silence is not uniform. For some, it is a preference, a gentle inclination toward introspection and measured thought. For others, it may feel like a necessity, a coping mechanism developed in response to overstimulation or past experiences of social strain. In both cases, the effect is similar. They derive comfort, insight, and even joy from being alone with their minds, from not having to constantly translate internal experience into external speech. In this space, they can fully inhabit their own perspective, unmediated and uninterrupted. Interestingly, silence can also deepen connection, paradoxically. When someone listens quietly, fully present, without the compulsion to speak, they create a kind of attention that is rare and profound. Others often feel noticed in a way that words alone cannot achieve. There is an intimacy in shared quiet, a mutual acknowledgement of presence that transcends ordinary conversation. And yet, this is a form of interaction that can be subtle and easily misunderstood by those who equate engagement with verbal exchange. Those who prefer silence are often misread as aloof, disinterested, or even cold, when in fact their engagement is deeper, quieter, and more nuanced. We also have to consider the role of internal dialogue. People who favor silence often have rich inner lives, and much of their processing happens internally rather than externally. They think in layers, in images, in associations that are difficult to translate directly into words. When they do speak, it is often carefully considered, distilled, and meaningful. Silence gives them the time to refine their thoughts, to explore consequences and connections that might otherwise be overlooked in the rush of conversation. This internal deliberation allows them to navigate the world with subtlety and insight, even if their exterior expression is minimal. Social norms often pressure individuals to speak, to fill space, to maintain a constant flow of communication. This can create tension for those who prefer silence, as if they are perpetually failing to meet an invisible standard. Yet their quietness is not a deficiency. It is a different mode of existence, one that prioritizes reflection, awareness, and selective engagement. In a society that prizes talkativeness, the silent observer may seem out of step, but in reality, they're in tune with rhythms that others rarely notice, attuned to patterns of thought and emotion that remain invisible in the bustle of chatter. Finally, the preference for silence over conversation often reflects a deeper understanding of one's own needs and limits. It is a form of self-knowledge, an acknowledgement that not all moments require verbal articulation. There is wisdom in recognizing when speech adds value and when it merely consumes energy. In silence, people find clarity, focus, and a sense of continuity with themselves. They're not avoiding connection, they're preserving the quality of the connections they do choose to engage in, approaching them with intention rather than impulse. Silence becomes a space for insight, for careful observation, and for authentic presence. In the end, preferring silence is not a rejection of communication, but a commitment to a different kind of interaction, one that values thoughtfulness, emotional sustainability, and depth over noise and immediacy. It is a recognition that the mind, like the body, needs rest, and that meaningful engagement is enhanced, not diminished, by periods of quiet. In choosing silence, they are choosing to inhabit their own world fully, to understand it, and to approach others from a place of genuine presence rather than obligation. Silence is not absence, it is attentiveness, it is reflection, it is a deliberate, conscious way of being in the world. It is the understanding that sometimes the most powerful form of communication is not to speak at all. If this perspective resonated with you or helped you understand yourself better, go ahead and subscribe. That's the best way to keep exploring these topics together. There are many more videos on this channel that dive into human behavior, self-understanding, and the quiet patterns that shape how we think and feel. Take your time, explore what speaks to you, and I'll see you in the next one.